In the ancient land of Ur of the Chaldees, a city of towering ziggurats and 1,000 gods carved from stone and clay, the world turned in its cycle of dust and darkness. Mankind had forgotten its maker, bowing instead to the silent moon and the voiceless sun. In this world lived a man named Abram, son of Terah. He was a man of his time, dwelling in the shadow of his father's house, a house that served these other gods. Yet the one true God, the unseen and eternal, looked down from the heavens and set his eyes upon this man. A voice, not of the wind or the earth, but of absolute authority, broke the silence of Abram's life. It was a command and a promise, a summons that would echo through all of human history. "Get thee out of thy country," the voice declared, "and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curse thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed." What faith it must take to obey such a call! To leave behind the known world, the familiar streets, the tombs of ancestors, the very fabric of one's identity for a destination unnamed. Yet Abram obeyed. He did not question. He did not bargain. He gathered his wife Sarai, whose womb was barren, and his nephew Lot. He gathered all their substance and the souls they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came. It was a land inhabited by others, a place of strange peoples and unfamiliar ways. But as Abram passed through the land, to the plain of Moriah, the Lord appeared to him again. "Unto thy seed will I give this land," he promised. There, amidst the Canaanites, Abram built an altar unto the Lord who appeared to him, a testament of stone to an unseen God. He journeyed on, pitching his tent between Bethel and Ai, and there he built another altar and called upon the name of the Lord. But faith is not a shield from hardship. A grievous famine arose in the land, and the ground grew hard and barren. The promise of a great nation seemed to mock him from the dust of the parched earth. And Abram, the man of faith, was gripped by fear. He looked not to the God who had promised, but to the mighty kingdom of Egypt, a land of plenty. He journeyed south, but as he neared its borders, he looked upon his wife Sarai, who was fair to look upon, and he said, "Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee." And so it was, as Abram had feared, that when he was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. The princes of Pharaoh saw her and commended her before the great king, and Sarai was taken into Pharaoh's house. For her sake, Pharaoh entreated Abram well. He was gifted with sheep and oxen and servants and camels. Abram the rich, Abram the prosperous, yet he had traded his integrity for security, and his wealth was a monument to his own deceit. But the Lord, who had called Abram out of darkness, would not suffer his purpose to be thwarted by the fear of a man or the power of a king. He plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. The affliction was grievous and unnatural, and in the halls of power there was confusion and fear. No magician, no priest could explain the source of the king's suffering. Pharaoh, in his distress, summoned Abram. There was no courtesy in his voice, only the sharp edge of accusation. "What is this that thou hast done unto me?" he demanded. "Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, She is my sister? So I might have taken her to me to wife. Now therefore behold thy wife, take her, and go thy way." And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had. Shamed but safe, Abram ascended out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. He returned to the place of the altar, which he had made there at the first, between Bethel and Ai. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord, a man humbled, a man reminded that the divine plan did not depend on his own cleverness. He was now very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. And Lot also, who went with Abram, had flocks, and herds, and tents. The land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together. A new strife arose, not from a foreign king, but from within their own camp. The herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle fought over the strained resources. And Abram, now walking in renewed wisdom, said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. Lot lifted up his eyes, and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, even as the garden of the Lord. He chose for himself the green and prosperous plain, and journeyed east, pitching his tent toward the city of Sodom, a place whose men were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Abram remained in the land of Canaan, alone in the place of promise. After that Lot was separated from him. The word of the Lord came again to Abram, not in rebuke, but in reassurance. Lift up now thine eyes, the voice commanded, and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Abram removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, and built there another altar unto the Lord. Yet the world did not rest. A great war erupted in the region. 4 kings from the east made war against 5 kings of the plain of Jordan, among them the king of Sodom. The kings of the plain were defeated, and the victors took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their victuals, and went their way. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. One who had escaped came, and told Abram the Hebrew. When Abram heard that his kinsman was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318 of them, and pursued the victorious kings. He divided his forces against them by night, he and his servants, and smote them, routing an army that had conquered kingdoms. He brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. On his return from the slaughter of the kings, Abram was met by 2 figures. The first was the king of Sodom, a man representing the world Abram had just conquered. The second was a man of mystery and power, Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God. He brought forth bread and wine, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And Abram gave him tithes of all. Then the king of Sodom made his worldly offer, Give me the persons, and take the goods to thyself. But Abram, a changed man from the one who had feared in Egypt, stood firm. I have lifted up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield, and thy exceeding great reward. But the promise of land and victory was hollow without the promised heir. Abram's heart ached with a question he could no longer contain. "Lord God," he cried, "what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus?" The voice of the Lord answered him, "This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir." And he brought him forth abroad under the vast, silent canopy of the desert night. "Look now toward heaven," God said, "and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them." The sky was a river of diamonds, a spectacle of infinite glory. So shall thy seed be. And Abram, standing under the weight of that impossible promise, believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. Yet Abram asked for a sign. "Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it?" The Lord instructed him to perform a solemn, ancient rite. "Take me an heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle-dove, and a young pigeon." Abram did as he was commanded. He divided the beasts in the midst, but the birds divided he not, and laid each piece one against another. As the sun began to set, fowls of prey came down upon the carcasses, and Abram drove them away, guarding the sacred offering. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. In that darkness God spoke of the future, a prophecy of hardship and deliverance. He foretold that Abram's seed would be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. But he also promised judgment upon that nation, and a great return. And it came to pass that, when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace, and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, sealing his oath not with words alone, but with the fire of his own divine presence. The years passed. 10 years Abram had dwelt in the land of Canaan, and still the promise of a son from his own body remained unfulfilled. The silence from heaven was deafening, and Sarai's faith began to fray. She looked upon her own aged body, her barrenness a constant reproach. She came to Abram with a plan born of desperation, a custom of the age. "Behold now," she said, "the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her." And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. He took Hagar, her Egyptian handmaid, and she conceived. But the fruit of this human plan was not joy, but bitterness. When Hagar knew she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Pride filled her heart, and she looked with contempt upon the barren Sarai. Sarai, her pain now mixed with fury, cried out to Abram, blaming him for the sorrow she herself had engineered. Abram, abdicating his authority, replied, "Behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee." And when Sarai dealt harshly with her, Hagar fled from her face, a fugitive in the wilderness. The angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water on the way to Shur. He called her by name. "Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou? And whither wilt thou go?" She answered, "I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai." The angel commanded her, "Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands." And then a promise was given to her, a reflection of the one given to Abram. "I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude." The angel declared that she would bear a son and call his name Ishmael, meaning, God hears, because the Lord had heard her affliction. Hagar, in her awe, called the name of the Lord that spake unto her, "Thou God saidst me." So she returned, and she bore Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. 13 more years passed. Ishmael grew into a boy, the only heir in the house of Abram. The promise of a son through Sarai seemed like a distant, forgotten dream. But God had not forgotten. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him again. "I am the Almighty God," he declared. "Walk before me, and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly." Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, "As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee." He established the covenant of circumcision, a physical sign in their flesh, for an everlasting covenant. Then God spoke of Sarai. "As for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her." Upon hearing this, Abraham fell upon his face, and he laughed. He laughed at the sheer impossibility of it. He said in his heart, "Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, that is 90 years old, bear?" He looked to the son he knew, the son of his flesh. "Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee," he pleaded. But God was resolute. "Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him." In the heat of the day, as Abraham sat in the tent door in the plains of Mamre, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. When he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground. He showed them the deep hospitality of the East, urging them to rest, to wash their feet, and to take a morsel of bread. He hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and commanded a meal be prepared, a tender calf, and cakes of fine meal. He stood by them under the tree, as they did eat, serving them as a humble host. Then one of them, who was the Lord himself, asked, "Where is Sarah thy wife?" Abraham replied, "Behold, in the tent." And he said, "I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son." Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, "After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also?" The Lord perceived her silent doubt. Wherefore did Sarah laugh? He asked Abraham, "Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee, and Sarah shall have a son." Sarah, in her fear, denied it, saying, "I laugh not." And he said, "Nay, but thou didst laugh." The men rose up from thence, and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. The Lord revealed his purpose to Abraham, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous. I will go down now, and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it. The 2 angels went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. A great dread filled him, not for himself, but for the people of the city, for his nephew Lot. He drew near, and spoke with a boldness that bordered on audacity. "Wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked?" He began, "Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy, and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein?" The Lord agreed. Abraham, emboldened, pressed his case, bartering for lives with the judge of all the earth, down from 50 to 45 to 40 to 30 to 20. Each time the Lord relented. Finally, Abraham made his last plea. "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there." And the Lord said, "I will not destroy it for 10's sake." The 2 angels arrived in Sodom at evening, and Lot, sitting in the gate of the city, rose up to meet them. He insisted they abide in his house. But before they lay down, the men of the city, both old and young, All the people from every quarter compassed the house round. They called to Lot, their voices thick with malice, demanding he bring out the visitors. In a moment of terrible panic, Lot offered his 2 virgin daughters to the mob to protect his guests. But the men of Sodom pressed sore upon him. Then the angels pulled Lot into the house and shut the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. The angels urged Lot to gather his family and flee, for the Lord would destroy the place. At dawn they hurried him, his wife, and his 2 daughters, setting them outside the city. "Escape for thy life," one commanded. "Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed." As the sun was risen upon the earth, the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain. But Lot's wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived, and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old, when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. The impossible had come to pass. The promise was fulfilled. The household was filled with the joy and laughter of a child, the heir of the covenant. After these things, the laughter ceased. God did test Abraham. The voice that had called him from yore, that had promised him the stars, now spoke a command that defied all reason, all love, all hope. Abraham. And he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell thee of. There was no explanation, no reason given. It was a command that seemed to negate every promise that had come before it. Yet Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up, and went unto the place of which God had told him. For 3 days they journeyed in silence. 3 days for the father to look upon his son, the son of laughter, the son of promise, and know what he must do. On the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place afar off. He said unto his young men, Abide thee here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. A statement of faith so profound it defied the reality of the command. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and they went both of them together. Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? The question pierced the father's heart. Abraham, his voice steady, replied with a prophecy he could not yet understand. My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. They came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. In that final, terrible moment of obedience, the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. Abraham lifted up his eyes, and looked, and behold behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham a second time, reaffirming the great promise with an unbreakable oath, because he had done this thing, and had not withheld his son, his only son. The story of Abraham is the story of a journey, not just a journey across the dusty plains of the ancient world, but a journey of the human heart toward its Creator. He was a man, flawed and fearful, who at times relied on his own schemes. Yet, through every trial, through famine, war, doubt, and even the command to sacrifice the very promise he had been given, his faith endured. He learned to trust not in what he could see, but in the one who had called him. His life teaches us that faith is not a single moment of belief, but a lifetime of walking, of building altars in strange lands, of trusting in a promise when all circumstances scream that it is impossible. It is the story of how one man's obedience, however imperfect, could become the foundation through which all the families of the earth would be blessed. The journey from Ur to Moriah was a testament that God's plan is not thwarted by human weakness, and his promises are kept, often in ways we can never foresee. Abraham's legacy is not that he was perfect, but that he was faithful, and he became known for all time as the friend of God. We hope the epic story of Abraham's faith has been an inspiration to you. These timeless narratives of trial and triumph have been shaping history for thousands of years, offering wisdom and hope to every generation. They remind us that even in our darkest moments, there is a greater purpose at work. If you have been moved by this dramatic retelling and wish to explore more of these powerful stories, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll join a community dedicated to bringing these foundational tales to life. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Your support helps us continue to produce this content and share these vital lessons with the world. Thank you for watching.